I called it. Well, I didn't exactly, but I did have my suspicions about the leaker Midori, and I can't say I'm surprised to hear they are not a very reliable source. Despite this, the Tale of Midori is a somewhat fascinating one, and almost reads like an epic tragedy. For those who clicked on this video and aren't somehow aware of who Midori is, she was a Japanese video game industry leaker who seemingly had a perfect track record. The information she reported was always accurate and always proven to be true. The problem is that this only turned out to be the fantasy that Midori was selling. See, I can't say I've ever seen a leaker gain a following quite like Midori. She began her leaking career by covering news on Atlus titles. You know, the company that belongs to Sega and is behind the Persona and Shin Megami Tensei series. I found out about the existence of Midori around the time she started reporting on Sonic news. Shortly after, even I became impressed by Midori's track record. She basically had me fooled for a second, and for a little while I thought she had to be an honest-to-God insider with access to all kinds of information. This period was short-lived, however, as my inner skeptic began to highlight my doubts about her. The start to all of this was a bit of drama involving another leaker known as Zippo, who is an entire other rabbit hole, but in short, Zippo is somewhat infamous for having a spotty track record. Essentially, what happened was that Zippo showed a bit of jealousy at the attention that Midori was gaining from her leaks, and he came off as a bit mad that he wasn't getting some of that pie, claiming he was in the game for far longer than she was. Seemingly because of harassment, Midori would announce that she was stepping away from leaks, and that's where the story ends, in an alternate universe. It didn't take long for Midori to return, and the reason she left was apparently because a supposed friend of hers betrayed her by sharing her information with Zippo. Keep this in mind, because it will be important later. Anyway, this is where the golden age of Midori's leaking career really began, as she probably saw how many people sided with her over Zippo and maybe had somewhat of an inflated ego. This is where my doubts really started to kick in. Midori began sharing leaks with more and more frequency. She was trusted enough that news sources started reporting on what she was saying. It was at this point I had a couple of questions on my mind. First of all, who the hell is Midori? Not just as a leaker, but who are they as a person? How can they keep getting away with these leaks without getting caught by their superiors? Secondly, why would some random Japanese woman working for Sega even bother to risk their entire career over a goddamn Twitter account? It just didn't make very much sense to me. But the Midori madness continued to ramp up as she started reporting on companies other than Sega and Atlus. To many, this era of her leaking career cemented her as the goddess of all leakers. There were a number of people who seemed to be really down bad for a faceless Twitter user who provided updates on all their favorite gaming franchises. It was quite a spectacle to observe. However, this was when my skepticism kicked into high gear. At this point, I really didn't buy the story that Midori's account was run by a single Japanese woman who happened to have a lot of industry connections. I really wanted an explanation as to what was going on with Midori, as I certainly didn't believe that she was who she claimed to be. One possible theory I had was that the Midori account acted as a proxy for multiple industry insiders so that nothing could be traced to an individual. Once the account gained a reputation and became more popular, it would attract more insiders. The other theory I had was that the account was run by a person who used some legitimate info to gain credibility. This credibility would help them get easy Twitter engagement, incentivizing them to post quite frequently. As many of you might be aware, the second theory turned out to be the more accurate one. In fact, it turns out there was never a Japanese woman behind the account at all. The real Midori is a white guy in his 20s who doesn't work for any of the companies he has leaked information from. And if you had any doubt about this, the Midori account would confirm the truth after this news could no longer be suppressed. Thus, this brings us to the true end of Midori. Hilariously, part of my first theory was correct. The account was run by multiple people who I assume wanted in on that sweet Twitter engagement. However, the truly comical part of all this is that Midori was the rebranding of a leaker who supposedly everyone in the Persona community knew as an attention seeker with a poor track record. So, as a whole, the tale of Midori is that of one who was initially met with failure and humiliation, only to then rise to the top as the most respected individual in their field. Unfortunately, like Icarus, Midori flew too close to the sun and ended up crashing and burning hard. There is a lesson to learn from all this, and that is to stop trusting leakers. I mean all of them. That being said, what about the information that Midori got right? It shouldn't matter what their real identity is as long as they provide reliable news, correct? Well, not quite. See, people who build their identity as leakers can provide legitimate information. Somehow, Midori gained access to Sega's internal presentations from 2021 to 2023, which is where pretty much all of Midori's accurate reports come from. That Persona 6 placeholder logo is probably fake as hell, sorry. But it was a red flag for me at the time. Notice how they use the word placeholder, which is pretty convenient if the final logo for an inevitable Persona 6 ends up being different. And that's where Midori ends up being no better than leakers with questionable reputations. See, the Midori account utilized some classic fake insider tricks to keep up the appearance after the real info they had access to was basically gone. If you look at the account today, it mostly looks like it reports on the latest video game news. This is an easy way to look legit and keep up that Twitter engagement. If you can put up an active professional behavior, people are more likely to buy your bullshit. So why would someone who is leaking corporate secrets need to behave professionally? After all, if they got found out, they are going to be blacklisted by any company that discovers their existence. Additionally, Midori is guilty of using the oldest fake insider trick in the book. What trick is that, you ask? Well, it's simply making safe predictions. In fact, this trick has likely been around since people have existed. Essentially, it's the same thing as cold reading. If you make a guess that you know is likely to be true, it probably will be. Oh, so a trailer for the third Sonic movie is coming out soon? Yeah, no shit, the movie has a December release date, and it would be surprising to not get a trailer by the end of July. The word soon doesn't specify any date, it just means sometime in the near future, which could imply many possible dates. This is an easy guess to make and probably doesn't hurt your track record. On the topic of the third Sonic movie, let's take a look at another fake insider, one which is a lot more obvious but is still able to somehow be considered a reliable source by several people. This is Unfolding Cine. He is primarily known for his Sonic 3 leaks and has gained some degree of respect from people for making accurate predictions. So why don't we take a look at some of these predictions? First of all, he correctly predicted that Jim Carrey would be returning as Dr. Robotnik in the third Sonic movie. While Carrey did announce his supposed retirement a while back, this isn't a tough guess to make. It's reasonable to assume that the execs at Paramount would do anything they could to get that name back for the third movie. He has also predicted that Kristen Ritter, who was confirmed to be in the movie before this prediction by the way, wouldn't be voicing an animated character. However, prior to this prediction, he was almost certain that Ritter would be voicing Amy Rose. Besides the inconsistency here, doesn't it make sense that Paramount would want voice reveals for big Sonic characters to be separate from other casting announcements? I'd be shocked to learn if any of the officially revealed cast has a voice role. Anyway, Unfolding Cine's main gimmick is his disappearing act. Sometimes after making a big prediction, his account will be wiped from the face of the earth, leaving people to assume that Paramount was responsible. However, there is no evidence that this is the case. I believe it's very likely that Unfolding Cine himself is responsible for his account's repeated deletion. He claims that Paramount has closed tabs on him, but the real kicker is that he also claims that he needs to spread false information now and then to keep the heat off of him. Makes for a pretty convenient shield, doesn't it? This statement alone makes him a completely unreliable news source. It doesn't matter if he gets legitimate info sometimes. The fact is that you can't trust any prediction from his account. To make matters worse, he's gotten some pretty big things wrong more recently. For example, he was absolutely certain that Keanu Reeves would not be voicing Shadow the Hedgehog. Whoops, I guess the trades disagreed with you on that one. He also claimed that the Sonic 3 trailer would be revealed the week after his post about it because other sources were reporting something similar. Guess what? Still no Sonic 3 trailer. The more you think about these insiders and leakers, the more they don't make sense. Leaking company secrets even once is a huge risk for anyone's career. Yes, real leaks do exist, and these supposed insiders can even sometimes gain access to them. That being said, actual insiders who leak anything are probably going to be as careful about it as possible unless they are some kid who likes to act very recklessly. They do not want to risk anything being traced back to them, and the more you share leaks from your company, the more that risk increases. That's why most real leaks are one-and-done deals. If a single leak can potentially get you in hot water with a company, imagine how easy it would be to get caught with several leaks. It's just going to narrow down the possibilities of potential leakers, eventually tracing back to you. It turns out that the person who supposedly betrayed Midori was just some kid who was pressured by Zippo to share info. Midori probably became panicked that their real identity could be revealed at any point, which caused him to briefly quit. After seeing all the support for the Midori account, he probably thought there was little risk of getting caught, so he decided to become even more ambitious. Basically, Midori was able to get away with it for so long because everyone wanted to believe the fantasy of a hot Japanese lady bringing them the latest gaming scoops. Sadly, people on the internet lie a lot. That's a shocker, I know. However, being a white guy who LARPs as a stereotypical Japanese woman certainly was a choice, alright. There are also some pretty serious accusations I've seen being tossed at Midori, but I'm not going to cover them here. The point of this video isn't to comment on the validity of those accusations. You can look those up on your own time and form your own judgment on that situation. The point of this video is to say that you should never blindly trust someone who presents themselves as an insider. This doesn't mean that they will never share real information, but that doesn't make them a reliable source. Midori is only a special case because he got lucky. At the end of the day, he was like most other fake insiders looking for attention. It's always a good idea to question where information is coming from. That doesn't necessarily mean the information is fake by any means, but as you likely know, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. I generally don't like to cover topics related to drama, but since I found this amusing and it was relevant to video games, I thought why the hell not? I'll be back with more videos as soon as I can. Also, you should play Nine Souls, it's pretty fucking great.